Good evening and welcome to Douglas County Courthouse. We are so glad you're here with us this evening for our third installment in our Art at the Courthouse series. Tonight, we are talking with three artists from the Virginia Highland Plein Air Painters Group who are exhibiting in our courthouse gallery upstairs. They are all plein air artists, and you will get to know what that means shortly. I'd like to invite you, if you haven't been, to our exhibit. It runs through September 15th, and it's on the third floor of the Douglas County Courthouse in the Courthouse Gallery. The exhibit is called The Beauty of Georgia, and it is an exhibit of the beautiful landscapes throughout our state. So I'm here with Beth Blackwell Cullen, who is the curator of our exhibit. And Beth, how are you? Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's great to be here, and we're excited to tell you more about the paintings that we've created over the last year or so.
Well, thank you. I'm excited too. I actually could not wait for this artist talk. First, can you tell us a little bit about you and how you got into art?
Sure. So my background actually is in real estate. I worked in commercial real estate for years, and I've always had a passion for art. And I finally decided to take the plunge in late 2016. And I began by taking community art classes through Fulton County, and I continued my education just sort of piecing different subject matter. You know, I tried a little bit of portraiture, I tried some florals and still lifes, I tried a little bit of everything, but really after COVID, we, were all sort of forced to reevaluate things, and so I began to paint outside. And I had done that before, but I really dove in, and I just haven't stopped. It turns out that it really does suit my personality, and it's to me, it's an adrenaline rush.
Wow.
I know.
Wasn't expecting to hear that.
It's true.
Okay, so would you first tell us, what does it mean to paint en plein air? How's
Yes.
my French? Was it good?
It was perfect. It's better than mine, that's for sure. So basically what that means is painters gather their materials together, and it could be any sort of medium. It can be watercolor, pastels, acrylic, oil. I like to paint in oil. And you go outside and you look for just something kind of simple, a simple scene. It doesn't have to be anything too complicated. And you just really look, and you think about, why am I drawn to this scene? Is it because the water is, cool and refreshing, or is it because that tree is bright and orange and reminds me of fall, or, what is it about this scene that captivates my interest? And here's where the adrenaline rush comes in. You paint it as fast as you can. So you don't want to go crazy, but you give yourself about 2 to 3 hours to compose the scene, paint the scene, and then you step back and sort of reevaluate. But it's about that moment. It's a brief moment that we get to really capture a scene and a feeling. I think that's a big part of it too, is to try to translate what you found beautiful through oil, acrylic, watercolor, and that sort of thing.
And as I was reading and learning about plein air painting for this exhibit, there are a few things that I found very interesting. One was that you are a part of that rush to get the painting done is that you're trying to capture the light at that moment.
That's right.
You've got to rush before the lighting changes.
That's right.
Because then your subject will change.
Exactly. So if you think about a still life, you're able to control, an artist is able to control the lighting on a still life, right? So you can light up the orange or the vase or the flowers, but outside, the sun is moving, the clouds are moving, the shadows are shifting. So it's it's an ever-changing environment, a constantly changing environment. And so you really have to trust your gut, trust your instincts, and just go for it. That's, to me, that's the adrenaline. Yeah.
And so then the other thing that really struck me about this was those artists who do choose to work in oil. How do you get anything done in 2 hours working with oil? Seriously, why isn't everything sliding all over the canvas?
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does, right? But typically what we do is it's a building process. So it's interesting. I don't think the process has changed in nearly, 200 years, right? Or 150 years. So if you think back to the late 1800s, Claude Monet and his band, they were all painting this way. And it really hasn't changed, which is remarkable to me. It feels like we're part of a tradition, and that's exciting to be a part of an art tradition. But what you do is you take a medium and you thin your paint, and so you're just slowly and gradually applying the paint thicker and thicker and thicker each time. So it's that first layer of paint that you put on in a thin wash that dictates how the painting's going to go. Yeah.
So that's very important, especially I think with working with oil, right?
Right.
To be able to build it up.
That's right.
I was speaking with another artist who works in oil, not a plein air artist, but he was telling me it takes 10 days really for oil to dry.
Yeah.
So,
sometimes longer.
It takes forever to to create an oil painting, I guess.
That's
if you
right.
were really, if you were a portraiture artist or whatever kind of artist you are, it takes a while for that stuff to really dry and set. So I just thought that was very interesting, and even more interesting as pertains to this technique or this way of painting.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the painting you have here?
Yes. So this painting is called The Duck Pond, and it's one of my very favorite places to paint. It's about 15 minutes, 20 minutes from my home, and it's in a little neighborhood. And one of the things that's been very fortunate is that we have neighbors who allow us to visit their private spaces and their neighborhoods and their gardens, and they allow us to visit for 2 or 3 hours on a Thursday morning and paint a scene, which is very generous. And so this was right before Thanksgiving. So it was in the fall of 2023. And I love orange trees. I don't know what it is, but I am just so enamored with the red and orange colors of fall. I love the heat. I feel like that's a hot scene. There's warmth there, but then I also like that you can cool off in the water as well. So it's that duality of hot and cold, and water and leaves. So I like doing that. I like that balance of crunchy leaves and soft, flowing, cool water.
And this is an oil painting, correct?
Yes.
So how long did it take you to do this one?
Yeah. So you'll hear different painters have different approaches and ways that they start and finish paintings. But I worked on this for about 2.5 hours, and I took it home and I put it up on my easel at home, and I just kept looking and looking and looking and pondering, what I could do to really maybe make a few adjustments to kind of, bring the punch sort of, to the painting. And so I did work on it for probably an hour or so at home as well, just to finish it off and to make sure that it was exactly what I wanted. When you paint in plein air, sometimes your eyes can fool you. And depending on where the sun is, you might not see things exactly the way you would like for them to be seen in the painting. And so a lot of artists will go home and make a few final adjustments.
Okay, so I've got a burning question for you that
Okay.
I love to ask artists.
Yes.
Do you sign your paintings on the front or on the back?
So I used to sign all of my paintings on the back, and I have changed. So that's probably been a change in the last year or so. And I just put my initials, BBC, because I am not very good at signing my name in oil. It's so hard. And the painting is difficult enough to paint. But I had no idea that the hardest part of painting a painting would be to paint the signature. So I just tried to make it really easy on myself and use my initials.
Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you, Beth. All right, we are here with another one of our featured artists, Barbara Ratner. And Barbara, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in art?
I'm the little girl who drew horses. I drew a lot as a child. When I grew up, I drifted in various directions, but eventually I went to architecture school because I thought I'd be able to draw a lot. I graduated, I became an architect, but what I really enjoyed doing in the office was the presentation drawings. I wasn't particularly interested in the architecture itself so much as how I could make a picture of it look. I never took any painting classes though, so most of what I'm talking about I was using markers and ink and the old blueprint machines and techniques involving those. When we moved to Atlanta, I got a job with an architecture firm as a renderer, which is the person who draws the building before it's built. And when I started doing that, it was pre-computer, and so there's a way to block out the drawing of the building, and it will look just the way that building will look. It's almost like magic. It takes a long time, but that's what we would do, is do a pencil drawing, and then in various ways color it with the colors and materials that the architect was proposing for the clients. So it was a really technical job, not really art. I mean, I could do skies or the kinds of trees sometimes, but everything was pretty tight and very literal. And I did that for years. I became a freelance renderer in 1990, and I did pictures of buildings that are all over Atlanta. And then, time went by, and the computer came on, and the computer, of course, has many, many benefits. It's much faster. Once the data is in it, it can generate many, many images where I could only do one. And so my timing was perfect, kind of. I reached more or less retirement age about when the computer had just wiped out any clientele I had. They didn't really want paintings anymore. But I feel very uncomfortable doing things that are free and open and that nobody has told me what to do, because I'm so used to people, drawing the boundaries of what they expect me to give them. And so I've not been very productive as an artist on my own. And when I discovered the Virginia Highland Plein Air painters, that was perfect for me because they just throw out a date and a time and they say, show up. And you can or not. And so because of them, I've been painting and trying to figure out what I want to paint. And, well, that's it. That's how I got here.
Well, that is a very interesting path. It's always an interesting path to hear how artists get to where they got to. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I really love about this painting is it does, it's an architect, but it's not rigid. It's not. It's still life there.
Well, thank you.
It is. It is still life there. Now, another reason why I really like this painting is because it's watercolor. And that is a whole nother technique of painting, because with correct me if I'm wrong, artists, watercolor is still a layering process as well.
Right.
Yeah? So when you first lay down where you're going to lay down, do you use, can you kind of just walk me through what you did here? What did you lay down first?
Well, it's tricky, but the thing about watercolor is that you're supposed to leave the white paper. That's your white. You aren't supposed to go back in and use your white pen to make white areas. So what I did first was I started with the pale greens, and I kind of just made a big blob, but tried to leave those little bits that, you know, would be the highlights of the sun catching the flowers. And then I just start getting darker and darker. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't think about it ahead of time as far as this edge. And when I got more or less done with everything, you know, it looked kind of lopsided. So I took it back in the house, and I painted a detail of the flower, just kind of to balance the composition. But you're supposed to work from light to dark. And you go back in, you know, the very last thing you do is cut in those dark areas, and that's what makes it pop out. It's hard to do that. I tend to paint all over the paper at once, light and dark, and sometimes end up with, you know, unsatisfactory results.
Or sometimes it's what pushes the art forward, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
you know, who knows, maybe you stumbled upon a new technique.
Maybe.
Time will tell. Now, I was talking with someone about this painting, and he was saying, you know what, if you turn it on its side, it could even work that way. Because then this looks like bushes coming
Yeah.
up, you know. So I don't know, maybe if this didn't have the peak there, it would just look like bushes growing alongside a building.
You're right.
But so anyway, so you could get 2 for 1, I guess, if you got this painting. And another thing that I love about this painting is you've done it as an architect would do it, because you're an architect, I guess.
I couldn't stop myself. I have a little straight edge that I go in with at the end, you know, make very clean lines so that otherwise my signature would, you know, just go down the page.
And so this says, I'm going to have to put my glasses on, Bee Balm meets,
It's complement.
Bee Balm meets its complement, and that's the title of this painting, correct?
It is.
Okay.
I was being kind of funny. It was because, you know, yellow is the complement of purple. And that's, you know, it just happened there was a yellow flower there, but it was mostly the lavender bee balm.
Okay, and so how long did it take you to finish this guy?
I would go along with what Beth said, about 2.5 hours. I took it inside and looked at it, and that's when I had taken a detailed picture. So this is done from a photograph, but the rest I was sitting out in my yard. And, well, actually, I should say, the other thing was, this was a Virginia Highland Thursday, and I was just running really late, and as I was dragging my paint stuff to the car, I thought, this is crazy. I'm going to be late by the time I get there. And so I decided to just sit in my yard and paint this, and that's how it happened.
So this is your house?
That's my neighbor's house.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And I actually really love this because you can see, you know, oh, what this is bee balm. Oh,
It
there's
is.
a bee there
There's
too.
a bee.
I don't think I ever no, I've looked at this painting a whole lot, but I don't think I ever noticed the bee was there too.
And there were bees all over it. That's why it has its name, that plant.
So I like that you can see a little more detail than you can with the ascension of the blossoms. I don't know what you would call that, but
No, that's
yeah.
well put.
Okay, and so I see you sign yours on the front.
I did.
Okay.
Yes. And that's an old habit from the architecture days, too. Because I used to do work, and if you didn't sign it if you signed it off on the edge somewhere, they would cut it off if whenever it was reproduced, and then no one would know who did the artwork. And so it was sort of defensive of putting your name somewhere up close on the front where it couldn't be cut off.
I think that, you should continue. Do you do all your pieces that way?
No, but maybe I will.
I think that makes it really unique.
Well, thank you.
No. I've certainly not seen anything like that. And, it also shows that you're approaching it from a different perspective that a whole lot of artists probably don't have. So, well done.
Thank you.
If you would like to see more of Barbara's work and the Virginia Highland Plein Air Painters, you can reach out to celebratedouglascounty.com. We'll have information there, or you can reach out to me. My contact will be on your screen. Thank you. We have another of our featured artists joining us. This is Georgia Nagel, and she's also a member of the Virginia Highland Plein Air Painters. Georgia, same question for you. Can you tell us a little about yourself and how you got started as an artist?
Absolutely. Growing up, my parents noticed that I was drawn to art, and so they always provided me paper, pens, everything, and that's about all I did. But that was partly because we moved a lot, and I always had my art I could go to until I made some friends, so that was very helpful. And I think they liked me locked in my room anyway. So they eventually got me some lessons at the museum. This is in Chattanooga, in the Hunter Museum. Was founded by the bottler of Coca-Cola, and the high was from Coca-Cola. So, tidbit. So I went on to, I was going to be a medical textbook illustrator, so I was going to make my own curriculum in college. And I took one art class, and I was like, biology is nice, but I'm leaving it behind. I'm just going to do art. That's all I really liked. And so when I got out of school, I made what an art major made for a living. Should have stuck with the biology. But I was so happy, and I was learning so much, and every day I would paint, or whatever I was doing. I sculpted some clay work. I'd always learn something, and I really appreciate that. I can't imagine a job where I don't get to learn something at the end of the day, come home with all kinds of information. So that's part of the rush for me. And so when I got out of school, I did what any art major would do. It's either join a band or become a picture framer, and I became a picture framer. So when I quit doing that to paint full time, everybody said, "Oh my God, you're making this leap. I can't believe it." And I was thinking, if you knew what a picture framer made, you'd know it was like stepping off a curb, it wasn't and I so enjoyed that. I could paint, I could have my music up really loud, and once in a while I'd look up and I had flicked paint on the ceiling, but I didn't care. In my house, I could do what I wanted, and I was just so free, and it was so wonderful. And I'm so grateful that that's what's come to me. I work really hard at it, but I also think there isn't much else I would want to do, and we won't even get into what I can't do. There are too many ringing in on that. So I've stayed with it and happily run into the Virginia Highland Plein Air Painters.
I think that's how people know if they're artists, you know, even if you're not making too much money, but you can't think of anything you'd rather be doing. And it also, if that's what feeds your soul and that's what's bringing you peace, it's really hard to trade for a bigger raise, a bigger salary. So.
Oh, absolutely. And my friends had jobs. They had a new car every 2 years, so on. They all, when we got together, all they did was complain about their jobs. And I'm not trying to make a big statement here, but that is how my life has gone. And I own a house, so, you know, I made money somewhere along the way. So it's been very nice life.
So I see you have chosen this one. It's called, let me see if I remember, The River, The Bend of the River? What?
No, but that'd be nice.
Oh, okay. So I didn't get it.
It's all
Okay.
right. I'm going to punt, too. I think it's called the Peachtree Creek Greenway, and it's a park in, it's new, and it's getting extended, but it's in Brookhaven, where I used to live. And it's a green space, and it's developed, and, you know, it needs something like that. This runs parallel to Beaufort Highway, so this is a nice passage. I think behind there are 2 car washes behind those trees, but in here it's just a nice paved walk.
So what I really find interesting and exciting and that I like about this one is you really see your strokes, the brush strokes here. And the strokes, they look energetic.
Oh,
I don't
great.
know what else to say, but they look energetic. So even though this is a park, you said?
Yes.
It still looks alive. I'm sure maybe the camera is not able to pick this up, but you can just, it looks like her strokes are going up and like to the side. It doesn't look like you were doing downstrokes. And upward motion means life, it means energy. It's that way in music too, when notes go up. Life, light, ascension. And so I think that's, maybe I'm doing too much interpretation into this painting, but
not at
that's what I
all.
get when I look at this.
So no, you're getting it spot on, actually. These trees are reaching for the sky, so they are drawn with these upstrokes. Some of these strokes are rounded to show the volume of the tree, to show shadows and light places. These are rocks that are put in very simply, but they come across, and I'm hoping that this comes across as a creek, because that's what it is, folks.
That's why I thought
If
I said river before. I thought it was
Right.
some sort of body of water.
Yes.
So I was correct with that.
See?
Okay, good.
See, I could just walk away right now.
No. No, you can't.
But I just love doing this, and I like, so people paint all sorts of ways. The kinds of paintings that I do, I like to give some visual interest by having different strokes, different colors, so that you can approach this painting, you know, one day, see it another few days later, and see something different. You can live with this, is how I feel about it, is because you're going to see something different in it. And then the other thing is, I've used some methods to try to get things across, and that is to put these dark spots in here and make them kind of cool so they recede, and so you know that the trees are in the foreground. I do things like that. And when we're talking about paint drying, I teach oil painting too, and one of the things that I try to get across to the class, they don't ever believe me, but when you are layering colors on top of one another and all of this is wet, what I tell them to do is load their brush and then pretend they're putting frosting on a delicate cake. And you can actually lay the paint on top of wet paint. And if you can do that, in some instances, that's going to solve a lot of the problems. If you don't do something like that, it's very easy to just mix all the colors together and then you just have mud. So I try to be very careful that I have these bright spots and the dark spots. The water runs this way, so my strokes are going that way. I don't know how interesting that is to somebody who's not taking my class, but it's what I know, so I'll talk about it.
Well, I think it's pretty interesting.
Well, thank you.
And I love to hear why artists made certain decisions and the techniques they use to try to get whatever they're trying to get across. So, it's those details, and that's why we do these things.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to mention to folks at home that these paintings, and I think particularly yours, they come out of the, artists correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But they come from the Impressionists, right? This style of painting. And so there is an Impressionist quality in all of them, and I think this one may be the most, in my humble opinion. Another fun fact I learned when I was learning about this. Did you know that this painting outside or in open air became popular when they figured out how to put paint in tubes? And then it was just easier to take the paint places because they had to mix it with, you had to literally mix oil and powder or oil and pigment, correct? Before?
Exactly.
And then the other thing was they made the box easel, right? So people could put their stuff in the box and just carry that around with them. So I thought that was cool.
No, it's
Who knew?
Great.
Yes. Unless you took art history in school or something like that. So, and I see, just barely, but only because you showed me, that you signed your painting on the front. And I think it's kind of cool how it just kind of blends into the landscape. It doesn't detract from what's going on. If you didn't know what you were looking at, you would think, oh, that's another, those are blades of grass or whatever, another detail in the painting.
Yeah, I'm a little shy that way. And sometimes I have forgotten to sign work. And when I was a picture framer, and my wife was too, she would frame my work. And then she'd come back with it and said, you didn't sign this, and I'm just wrecking the flow of things. But with these type paintings, because I do them all at once, usually finish them on the spot, I'll just take a nail, actually, and carve my name into it, just the 5 letters of Nagel. But then that way it's there, it's not going away, but it's not neon sign.
So how long did it take you to complete this one?
Probably 2.5, 3 hours, yeah.
And how long did it take it to dry?
It's still drying, is what I was taught in school, that Rembrandts are still drying. If you spill oil on the counter, it's always going to be there. So, it's kind of the same thing. And there are ways of framing to allow air to pass through in the back, too. So that's why you don't put glass on an oil painting. You won't allow it to dry.
I didn't know that.
I know, picture framing tips, too.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm the whole package.
Yeah, so we've learned something else. Well, thank you, Georgia. Thank you for sharing
Thank
this
you,
with
Wendy.
us. If you'd like to see more of Georgia's work and more of the work from the Virginia Highland Plein Air Painters, please join us on the 3rd floor of the Douglas County Courthouse. This exhibit will be on view until September 15th.
The fact that the artists are from Virginia Highlands, which is, the heart of Atlanta. I grew up not too far from there. The fact that you would think enough to come down here to Douglas County and share, your talents with us is phenomenal. Thank you for thinking of us, and thank you for doing this. I learned so much tonight, right? Like, this is why you don't put oil paintings in glass, right? Like, who knew that? Like, because it wouldn't dry, right? And the fact that you should start, blending your colors from dark to light, light to, like, there is so much to learn in these paintings and from the artists. So thank you for sharing this with us, with our county, with the constituents who will be able to see this.